Hello and welcome. Here's a tutorial on how I build interchangeable walls for my doll scenes. I had the basic idea a couple of years ago, but a recent tutorial from MyFroggyStuff did it much better. She is amazing, so I adopted her method immediately. Link to that video in the description below. I used foam core. So for this craft, you'll need 2 sheets at 16 by 20 foam core, and then 2 more sheets or some scraps of foam core if you have them. You'll need an X-Acto knife or a utility knife with brand new sharp blades. Please have extra blades on hand as well, because that ensures clean cuts. For some reason, the foam core goes through blades like crazy. You'll need a ruler. This type of ruler, it's 3 inches wide by 18 inches long. This is a Fiskars sewing ruler. And the great thing about this is when you're trying to measure to get a straight line, you can make a mark there and a mark there, and it'll come out straight every time. So these lines also help you line up the edges of what you're cutting, paper, foam core, whatever, and keep it nice and straight. You get much better straight cuts with a ruler like this, especially when you're measuring. So anyway, I love these rulers. And glue. I like to use Fabri-Tac or Beacon 3-in-1, simply because it's like hot glue in a bottle, and it bonds with the foam edges of foam core really, really well. So without having to use hot glue. So I've always had really good luck with this. Now, a couple of other things you might want is if you want clear plastic to make glass to put in the window, because we're going to be putting a window in this wall, then you'll need some sort of clear plastic. And then you might want some fabric if you're going to make a cushion for the seat. Today, we're just going to be focusing on the structure and how I go about building it using the tips from MyFroggyStuff. So I like my walls to be 16 inches high, which is equivalent to an 8-foot ceiling in real life. Let's get into making some cuts and get this thing built. Okay, so for our first cuts, we're going to want 2 pieces that are 2 1/4 by 16. Once you're satisfied you have it straight, you want to take your knife, hold it at about a 45-degree angle, because this ensures a smooth cut straight up and down. You're just going to be dragging through it and tearing up the foam core. Too shallow, same thing, it's just not going to give you a good cut. Make sure you have enough blade extended out, and make a light score to start. Then you just take it, press a little harder, drag it through, and then if necessary a 3rd time, and you get a nice clean cut with the foam not all torn up. So here's the 2 sides for what we're going to make is a box type wall. Let me show you what I mean. Hopefully it won't be so big that you can't see it. But here is, you can see I've stored things down in there, which is what's so cool about these walls. Now this is the concept that MyFroggyStuff came up with, which I thought was so nice, is you build this box frame. Not only does it make it sturdy so that it stands up, you can store backgrounds and lighting and other stuff inside of this box so that everything is out of your way, and then when you're ready to set up, you have everything you need. So let's get this out of the way. So the pieces I just cut, these are going to be the sides of that box. So now, this is optional, you're going to want to cut the bottom of the box. So we're going to cut that bottom piece at 2 1/4. Now we can begin assembling. Alrighty, so we're just going to run a bead of glue. Let's get it flowing. And it doesn't take a whole lot. Now, having a steady hand helps. Obviously, I'm lacking in that department, but we'll make it work. Perfection is not our goal. Fun is. So make sure it's lined up real well with the bottom. Just press it. And to make sure that it's as straight as you can get it, you can use another piece. And this stuff dries pretty quick, so you have a little bit of time to reposition, but not a whole lot. And it does remain slightly flexible, so that's a good thing. And voila, you have the first sidewall. Now let's glue the second and move on. And now we're going to try to glue the bottom. If we've measured right, it should fit pretty well. So we're going to put some glue here on either side. And then, of course, along the long edge. Doesn't take a super lot. Plus, we are going to reinforce. So we've got that. And we're just going to slip it into place. Try to make sure everything's lined up. Give it a little press. Now, I always recommend that you keep scraps, and this is why. These little scraps were left over from a project I made where I was making a bathroom vanity, and you can use these as supports, as extra support for this base. So what I do is I glue that, and I glue this flat side, and I just, oops, helps if you get it in there the right way. And I just glue it in like that. Give it a firm press, make sure everything's still lined up. Of course, getting all my little glue beads everywhere. I am a messy gluer. I cannot help myself, I swear. So same thing, a little glue on the face, a little glue on the side. Now you can use white glue if that's what you have, or even wood glue is better than white glue. However, the trick with using that is the foam is not super conducive to airflow, and from my understanding, airflow is really necessary for things like wood and white glue to set up properly. So when you're using foam core, it might, or any kind of foam, it might take a little longer for those types of glues to dry than they normally would, simply because they can't get the airflow they need to dry. Whereas a glue like Fabri-Tac or Beacon 3-in-1 is an alcohol-based or solvent-based glue. Now, a lot of people will tell you, well, that's going to melt your foam. For whatever reason, this particular brand does not. So it's not, I've used it for years to glue foam core, and I've never had a problem, and it's always held up really well, stood the test of time. So now we're going to want to do a couple of braces here, 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 and here. Now we're not going to glue the window wall on yet. But I'm just preparing this because it's easier to do all of this now. So the best way to do this side where you don't have the wall yet is to just put some glue on the bottom and line it up with the edge as best you can. Get it as tight and as close as you can. So we'll put 2 more on the opposite sides, and then we'll be ready to work on the window. Okay, so now we are going to mark our foam core for where we want the window to be. Window size, bookcase size, everything is a matter of preference. So I'll lightly mark the very center of my board, which is at 10 inches because it's 20 inches wide. And then 3 inches tall for the window seat to hit the Barbies comfortably. So I want my window, the bottom of my window, to come at 4 inches. So I just measure up 4 inches. And this is where these rulers come in handy, because if you want to know, instead of having to measure up 4 inches twice, you just mark the other side. And there you have the 2 marks that should give you a level straight line directly across. So then I'm going to lightly, and then another cool thing is you've marked your center line. So if you can mark these line these lines up with the center line, it will double ensure that you get a nice level bottom edge to your window. And then I just lightly score. Now another cool thing is I know I'm going to want my window to be 8 inches wide to match the window seat. However, once again, I'm going to try to allow for a 1/4 inch window frame. Normally I would measure 4 and 4 over, but I want to account for that frame and give it a place to glue in. So I'm going to just cut it a little short by about 1/4 inch. So it'll be 3 3/4, 3 3/4. And so these marks are going to be the sides of my window. You know, 7 and that wasn't exact, but once again, I'm not gonna struggle. The struggle is real. I am not going to overly worry about it being absolute perfection. Otherwise, I would never get anything done. So now I know I wanted my window to be 10 inches tall, and then just lightly score across. And there you have your window. So here's where having a nice, sharp, brand new blade is really, really important. So I am going to break away the blade because, as I said, foam core dulls these things really fast. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to cut out our window. Now here's a neat trick that I also learned from watching MyFroggyStuff, is when you have your window cut out for the sides of the frame, the insert is the perfect height. So all you have to do is cut off whatever width you want your frame to be. For me, I'm going to do 1/4 inch. So now we are on what I call the good side of the window. And we want to glue the frame on this side. It's the side opposite all the pencil marks. And you can see there's some imperfections in our cut, but that's okay because window frames hide many, many evils. So we're going to take our glue, and I already started gluing this one, but we'll go ahead and add a new bead of glue to it. Not going to hurt anything. And you just line it up as best you can, as neatly as you can. Oopsie, got a little too far out there. And I just run my fingers gently. Try to line it up with the top and the bottom. Excuse my fuzzy head. As best you can. Like I said, I'm not really going for perfection here. I'm just having fun, hanging out with y'all, building a Barbie scene. For the 1/6 scale fam. There we go. So, just gonna run my finger down. So it lines up as best I can get it. That looks pretty good. Now, taking a scrap piece of paper, foam core, I've decided to do a very simple decorative sort of a design. So what I do is I kind of line this up with my craft mat. The top of the window is now lined up with one of those lines. I'm taking a look. I'm thinking I'm going to want to come down about 2 inches. So I'm going to need a piece that goes 8 inches across and that I can glue down into the window frame. So let's cut that. Now, if you want glass, you're going to need to take a sheet of plastic, your preference as to what type. I'm using transparency film for a inkjet printer. It is very staticky. So, I believe it's 8.5 by 11. So we just evenly space it over our window. Now, plastic doesn't glue well unless you use a special type of glue. So in general, I try not to trust glue to hold my windows in place. I just place it here, and then I'll take, here's those ubiquitous scraps again, and I'll just glue scraps a little bit over like that. So let's grab some scraps. And slightly wider scraps might be better, but we'll see what we can do with what we have. So I'm just going to run a bead of glue on more towards one edge, and I'm just going to gently overlap it, press this in place. Heavy big scrap, and since this is going to be on the inside of our box wall, it's not really going to show, so I'm not overly concerned. Make sure you don't get it so far up that it shows when you're looking through the window. And cat fur. We have cats, and therefore there is cat fur. And plenty of it. So now we're ready to glue our front wall in place. So taking our trusty glue, we just run a bead across the wall here, trying to keep it on the foam core and not running down the sides. So, kind of clean off the glass a little and line up your wall, press it in place, and set it aside to dry. So while our main wall dries, we're going to go ahead and assemble our window seat. Now I have 2 pieces that are 8 inches wide and 3 inches deep, and then I have 3 support pieces for the sides and a divider in the middle that are 2 1/4 by 3. So we're going to glue these like this. So these are the sides and a divider in the middle, which will create a couple of little compartments under our window seat that the Barbies can use to store things. So taking some glue, so now we will assemble I am not the neatest gluer in the world. But, you know, I get the job done. Now, to do the top. There's those hot glue type strings again. And now we just line this up, trying to keep it as square as we can. Now, another tool that I forgot to mention that I have on hand, and it's a specialty tool, so, you know, if you don't have them, they're not necessarily, but I got these Shopfox Machinist Square set. Actually, I believe I got them off of Amazon, but when you're trying to make something straight, like this little guy, and you kind of want it to come out square, these guys are invaluable. They are very heavy, solid stainless steel, and they are a perfect 90-degree angle. So if I really want to glue something together, and because of their weight, they can actually hold the item in place. So I would just take the two largest, and I would do something like that, and I would just give it a gentle press. And that should square it up for you. So just a tip if you wanted to invest the money, and if not, no big deal. You can do just fine without them. So I wish I had a better angle for you, but I don't. So what we need to do is, this is our little window seat. Oh, glue. We call them glue boogers around here. Not a nice term, but there you have it. So we wanted to glue it up against the wall right underneath our window. And we kind of want to center it as best we can. So let's just take some glue. Our trusty handy dandy Fabri-Tac. I'm not sure what the difference, honestly, between the Fabri-Tac and the 3-in-1 is. So if anybody knows, tell me, because to me they seem to be pretty much the same thing, but I'm sure it tells you somewhere. But I've always used them interchangeably, and I've never had a problem with it. So I like to glue it with the wall upright, because that ensures that I can push it down against the floor. Just kind of press it up against the wall, push it down. That makes everything level. So as you can see, this wall is going to be super sturdy and almost impossible to tip over once everything dries in place. So I'm just going to hold it for a few seconds, let the glue take a good hold, and then we'll be ready to move on to building the bookcase that's going to be on either side of this window seat. So now it's time to build the bookcases. Now normally I might build them the same way I built the window seat, which is kind of separate, and then glue them on, but everything is just a little bit off. You know, that's just par for the course. So that being the case, I'll probably just build them in place so that everything kind of sort of evens out in the end, so to speak. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put the sides on. Now the sides are going to be 3 inches deep to allow for a nice cozy window space for the dolls to rest and read a book. Then the bookshelves on either side are going to be slightly less deep. So let's go ahead and get these sides glued on first. put some glue on the sides of the window seat. Help make this much, much sturdier. And we're just going to try our best to line it up and roll it up into place. Now we'll set this aside to dry. Alrighty, so I've decided I want my shelves for the bookcases on either side to be approximately 3 inches wide. So since my ruler is exactly 3 inches wide, that makes it really easy. So I just make sure the bottom of the ruler is lined up nice and square with everything. And these strips are each 1.5 inches wide. That's how deep I want my shelves to be. And then I will just use the ruler to help guide me in gluing these in place. Alrighty, so now I want to put the shelves in, and the shelves are going to be 1.5 deep by 3 inches wide, and they should slip right in. So what I want to do is put a couple of bottom shelves in place first, and this is going to help square everything up so that when I put the rest of the shelves in, things stay a little more square and easy for me. So I want to put in the bottom. Just going to glue around 3 edges of our shelf, which is actually just going to become the base. Let's slip this in here. Give it a good press. Press it in place. And also when you glue things like this, you want to slide them around a little bit in case a little glue presses or seeps out the bottom. It won't get glued or stuck to your surface that you're working on, your work surface. And I've managed to smear glue everywhere, but there's a lot of things we can do to try and remedy that. Right now, just need to make sure that this is pressed into place, nice and firm. And then we're going to do the same at the top. And there you have the beginnings of the bookshelves. Now we've cut some other shelves, which we'll have to measure where we want them to go, and we'll slip them in place, and then we'll pretty much be finished with the main structure. Another handy tip is when you're gluing the shelves in, create some spacers that are the same size. That way when you glue your shelves in, oops, just simply glue them in and they'll be evenly spaced all the way up. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will talk to you next time.